In our last video, we were in the beautiful city of Venice, Florida. We strolled the beautiful landscape streets of downtown. Learned about the Florida campus of the Kentucky Military Institute, building that's today a hotel. Of course, we had to check out the beach. And finally, we strolled along a beautiful waterfront path. In this video,
we're in Apalachicola, Florida.
For context, we visited Apalachicola on a Thursday afternoon in May. This was our first stop on what we're calling Wanderlust 2024, our road trip from Central Florida to Kansas and back again.
Today we're in Apalachicola, which is in the Florida Panhandle. It is Florida's largest producer of oysters. It looks like it has a really cute downtown, and we're excited to explore. Actually, it was Florida's largest producer of oysters, 90% of them to be specific. But in 2020, they put a moratorium on oyster harvesting due to pollution and lack of water flow in the Apalachicola River. That lasts until 2025, at which time they will reevaluate.
So obviously we started at the waterfront, which is just adjacent to downtown. Throughout this video, we'll explore the downtown. It's roughly 4 square blocks. And then later in the video, we do wander a little bit into the residential areas.
Apalachicola sits on the shore of Apalachicola Bay, which is an inlet of the Gulf of Mexico, near the mouth of the Apalachicola River. It dates way back to the 1500s when it was under Spanish rule as part of Spanish Florida. The city itself was incorporated in 1831 and has a current population of about 2,300. This city is an example of what is called Old Florida, and locals refer to it as Appalach. Today, especially with oyster harvesting on hold, tourism is a big part of the economy.
Yes, there are many towns along the Gulf Coast of Florida, Mississippi, and Alabama that bring in a lot of tourists during the summer season. So be prepared if that's the time that you're going to visit. As I mentioned earlier, this is a fairly small downtown, and at this point we're just zigzagging along the core of the downtown streets.
We were happy to see that most of the storefronts were occupied. This brick building is one of the oldest buildings in town, dating back to the 1850s. It's named the Sponge Exchange because of its role in the sponge trade era, which was about 1850 to 1900. The trade of sponge diving was brought by Greek immigrants in the 1850s. This building then sat empty and dilapidated for a long time, but was finally restored in the 1990s.
If you check out our video on Tarpon Springs, you'll see that's another city that is hugely influenced by Greek immigrants.
Until the late 1800s, Apalachicola was actually the third busiest port on the Gulf of Mexico, behind New Orleans and Mobile, Alabama. In 1836, they actually had 43 three-story brick cotton warehouses along the waterfront. So cotton was harvested in the south, brought down here, and then shipped to the northeast or to Europe. This era of them being a major shipping port lasted about 20 years.
This was a great way to kick off our road trip. Being from the West Coast, Caroline and I are embarrassingly ignorant of the East Coast, even though we actually live here now. And so most of these places we visit on this road trip, we didn't even know existed until we looked on a map. And boy, am I glad that we did this. The Gulf Coast cities are just beautiful.
So in front of the ice company is a good time to mention that an Apalachicola physician, Dr. Gorey, actually discovered the cold air process of refrigeration and patented an ice machine back in 1850. His invention actually laid the groundwork for the development of modern refrigeration and air conditioning, which I will say is a must if you live in Florida.
I'd say it's a must just about everywhere.
This white building is the Bowery Inn, built in 1900. At one point, it also served as a general mercantile with living quarters upstairs. Then it sat vacant for 40 years. It was restored in 2015 and is now a B&B with about 4 guest rooms.
Yeah, having done a lot of traveling over the last 2-3 decades, it's always just amazing to me how many really cool cities have let a lot of their buildings go into disrepair. With that said, especially in the last 10 years, we've noticed a lot of them are coming back to life. So that's just something that we both think is really positive. And hey, why not take advantage of your downtown and bring in some tourist dollars?
We were pleasantly surprised to see that their little theater was still in use.
Yeah, going back to the resurgence of downtowns, we've noticed that theaters are often the cornerstone for rebuilding an old downtown.
Yeah, Ponca City, Oklahoma would be a good example of that. Check out our video for that city. The White House across the street is now home to the Rainey House Museum. It was built in 1838 and was home to David and Harriet Rainey and their 8 children. Rainey family members actually lived there until 1913. The city purchased it in 1973, and it is now managed by the Historical Society. If you want to visit, they're open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Admission is free, but they do accept donations at the door. This is the Fredosia building. It was built in late 1900 after a fire had destroyed most of the business district in downtown. This is the Fort Coombs Armory. It's actually the second one. The first one was destroyed in 1900. This was built in 1901.
And as promised earlier, here's some examples of the houses that are adjacent to downtown. So with that said, it's time to wrap this video up. All right, what'd you think of Apalachicola?
I loved Apalachicola. What a quaint little town, great old buildings, and right on the waterfront. I loved it.
Yeah, this was an awesome surprise. If you watch our videos, you know we love historic downtowns and you know we love waterfronts, and this one has them both. So absolutely give this one a thumbs up. With that said, get off the couch. We'll see you next time.
Cheers!